President, Senior Performance and Attribution Analyst and Manager at Acadian Asset Management. In this role, he provides custom analytics, maintains GIPS compliance, oversees process improvements, and develops staff. He joined Acadian in 2007, and prior to this, Daryl spent 3 years in accounting and client service roles at State Street Corporation. He is a CFA charter holder and a member of the Boston Security Analysts Society. Stephen Saffhill is Director, Head of Performance and Client Reporting at Barings Asset Management. Stephen has over 23 years of experience within the financial services industry. He joined Barings in 1997 as a performance analyst, having previously worked as a fund manager's assistant at Schroeder Investment Management. And Stephen was appointed Head of Client Service Operations in 2005 and Head of Performance and Client Reporting in 2010. And Stephen is a member of the Investment Association Investment Performance Committee. Now, before asking our panelists for their views, I want to set the scene for the discussion. The key objective of the asset management industry is to deliver value to investors, whether they be institutions or individuals, through the management of their funds. And there was a time when investors would hand over their money to investment managers and leave it to the managers to take the money, invest it, and give them more back at some point in the future. And in this bygone age, investment managers would invest their clients' money in equities, in bonds, or in some combination of the two. And back then, the role of performance teams was largely passive. They were not seen as part of the value creation processes, and they did not make a significant contribution to the management of client relationships. But that world has changed, and in today's world, investor behaviours are very different. They want more transparency, more information about where their funds are invested, and more detail about how well they are doing, and more explanation from managers about the investment decisions they are taking. And at the same time, managers are using more sophisticated investment strategies and investing in more complex assets. And so the value creation process has become much more complex. Put these two trends together, and what you have are clients who want to know a lot more about a much more complex process. In this webinar, we want to explore how this is changing the role of performance teams, requiring them to play a more active role in investment management processes and in client management processes. So, before I ask the panel to comment on this topic, we'd like to get your views. We'd like you to pick one of the options shown here. So we'll close the poll very soon. So, and we're showing you there what the results of your voting is. 60% of you think that the analyses provided by performance teams can make a significant contribution to the quality of investment decisions, and 38% of you think they can often provide some useful insight, and there aren't any of you who think they don't make any contribution at all. Now, that may be because most of you are working in a performance role, but let's see what our panelists have got to say about this. Daryl, let's start with you. To what extent can the analysts provided by performance teams enhance the quality of investment decisions made by investment teams?
Thanks, Peter. I believe that performance teams have the ability to play a critical role in the investment process. Now, to provide a little background, here at Acadian, we have a very open approach to research. However, our objective and systematic process insulates us from the same behavioral biases that we seek to exploit. Our quantitative process ensures repeatability and controls for operational risk. And while we want to pursue new ideas aggressively, our process remains disciplined. That being said, there still leaves plenty of opportunity for our performance teams to enhance the investment process and aid the portfolio management team. Now, the data, performance attribution reports, and custom analytics are part of the feedback loop within our investment process. Before we're able to get into the performance attribution value add, however, our team's analysts have to be very familiar with the investment process. This is a critical prerequisite to be able to accurately analyze our investment results. By understanding the investment process, we're able to view the portfolio through many lenses. Now, what I mean by that is we can look at a strategy's performance through a Brinton-style attribution for country, sector, or market cap. And from there, we can look at stock selection, allocation effects. We can also look at custom factor attribution to determine if performance was particularly influenced by a factor story. We then relate these results back to macroeconomic themes and eventually tie the ex post results to our investment process and individual securities alpha forecast. Now, how we communicate our data and findings is part of our value add, and I think is also critical. We know we only have a short amount of time to get our insights across to our portfolio managers, so we rely very heavily on data visualization techniques to ensure that important knowledge is conveyed and received. Now, we leverage a lot of Edward Tufte's design ideas on how to best visualize and present large data sets. That's Tufte, T-U-F-T-E. There's a lot of good books, resources out there, as well as training sessions. Another good source is Tim Ryan's design considerations for performance presentations, which is in the Journal of Performance Measurement in fall 2013. It's another good resource that our team utilizes. Now, while data visualization isn't a new concept by any stretch, the amount of data we're analyzing now, the monthly dimensional analysis, as well as the speed in which these reports have to be turned around, requires an extremely efficient way to visualize this data in large amounts of it. And our team's very skilled at effectively narrowing down the seemingly infinite data points on an attribution report to the few that are most critical. At our firm, there's a very open dialogue between the performance team and the portfolio management team. On numerous occasions, we partner with our PMs to perform deep dives, as we call them, to really dig in and analyze a particular strategy where a portfolio may not have performed as we expected. And to provide a few other examples, we analyzed our prime broker inventories while reviewing performance attribution for our long-short products. We were able to work closely with our portfolio construction team and brokers to review their opportunity sets. And one more example, and I'll stop at this one and pass it along, is Acadian's expertise in long history and managed volatility strategies. So the goal of these strategies is not alpha generation, but rather risk reduction with market-like returns. So the attribution is quite different. And our performance team creates and provides, along with analysis on this attribution that is specific to these strategies, to analyze sources of alpha through custom beta and volatility quintiles to aid the portfolio management team.
Okay, thank you for that, Daryl. Stephen, what would you like? Would you like to add anything to what Daryl has just shared with us?
Yeah, I would do actually. Thank you, Peter. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think performance teams can make a valid and valued contribution to the investment process. I think that most performance teams these days do have access to clean, complex data sets and are comprised of highly skilled, experienced and qualified individuals. So I think if you utilise those, you know, the data and the systems and the people effectively and creatively, then you definitely can add value to the process. So as an example, very similar to what Daryl was just describing actually with his deep dive meeting or reviews that he does at Acadian. I mean, we have a similar thing at Barings where we've structured the team so that we've got a specific dedicated business-facing performance unit who do work closely with investment. So, you know, they're not bogged down with you know, data loading processes or data checking or, you know, the large volume of regular client reporting requests. So they've actually got the capacity to assist the investment team and look for value-added opportunities. So, you know, as I said, similar to the deep dive example that Daryl gave, we have a monthly strategic product review meeting. Effectively, during that time, we lift the lid on a particular investment product. And that involves members of the performance team working closely with investment risk and our head of investment process to identify patterns relating to style, trading risk, contribution and portfolio composition. So they use the tools, the data and the knowledge at their disposal to identify alternate angles of analysis things that are different to the normal type of analysis that we often do. And I'd also finally add as well, that type of team structure also has a benefit to the performance team. So we've got a recent example where we've had one of our performance analysts has actually moved into a role within the investment team due to the work that he's done over the years and experience that he's gained in that area. So it's a positive step for him, and it's a good example of someone moving from performance into investment as well.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. And yes, and I think your example there is far from unique. Certainly, the performance team that I managed, which was a long time ago now, many of the performance analysts who worked in that team have moved into roles where they're now portfolio managers or client managers in front office roles. And so now let's turn to the management of the relationships between asset management firms and their clients. And again, before I ask the panel for their comments, we'd like to give you the opportunity to tell us what you think. So it's the same procedure as last time. Pick one of these options. We'll give you 30 seconds or so to make your choice, and then we'll feed back to you how you all voted. Okay, how are we doing? Are we ready to share the results? And here we go again. So 59% of you think that the analyses provided by performance teams strengthen the relationships with asset management organisations and investors. 32% of you think that they can often improve. And once again, you're unanimous in rejecting the idea that they don't make any contribution at all. So, Stephen, let's start with you this time. To what extent can the analyses provided by performance teams enhance the quality of client relationships?
Okay, thank you, Peter. Well, again, I mean, I feel the contribution that performance teams can make in this area shouldn't be underestimated. I think the first thing you've got to do is understand who your external clients actually are and the roles that they play. The clients include shareholders, pension schemes, consultants, fund platforms. They've all got different requirements, priorities and levels of complexity. So I think the performance managers need to ensure that there's regular and proactive engagement between their team and the client relationship team, the sales team, and of course where possible with the clients themselves. Furthermore, there needs to be communication with the IT and the client reporting teams to make sure that you have robust and sustainable delivery methods. So then I think once you've established your requirements and you reached a better understanding of your client's needs, there's two main areas of focus that follow. First of all, you've got reactive, so that's delivery of regular reporting requirements, regular data provision and ad hoc requests. And secondly, proactive, which is a continued liaison, anticipating change and seeking out value-added contributions, similar to what we were talking about earlier. So they're both areas are of course important, but I think performance teams should be automating or compartmentalising the first requirement wherever and as much as possible. So, utilisation of leading performance and client reporting systems with automated workflow, calculations, quality assurance and onward distribution methods will help them achieve their goal of accurate, timely and quality regular performance reporting. I mean, we're actually at Barings, we're actually in the process of implementing a new equity and fixed income performance system. Our focus is currently on establishing firm processing and workflow processes, but once that's in place later on this year, I do want to apply more resources on the delivery of the second objective. So I'll be focusing on things like ongoing liaison and communication, that's internal and external, that's to make sure that the delivery style, content, method continues to meet our clients' requirements. Investment awareness, so again, following on from my earlier point, we need to have a good understanding of our products, investment style and the instruments that we use. Make sure that the performance is represented correctly and can be clearly explained to clients. Also regulatory awareness, and so, you know, for example, Solvency II, two big regulatory projects on the horizon. They both impact our clients and both have a crossover into the performance world. And also, you know, education as well. So explaining or presenting performance and results to end clients, you know, either directly through client meetings or via a client service representative. And also finally, utilisation of new technology as well. So I know we're going to touch upon that a bit later on, actually. But you know, there's a number of you know, alternative methods for communicating information or, you know, performance data to end recipients. So you know, they're the main sort of areas where I see we can be more proactive. Thank you, Peter.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. Daryl, what would you like to add?
Yeah, so we look at performance and attribution as the intersection of client service, marketing, investment management, and operations. So while we touch almost every other department within our firm, we work very closely with our client service teams on a daily basis. So performance is the firm's ultimate product. It's the single most tangible thing that we give to our clients on an ongoing basis to demonstrate our value. Now, our goal at Acadian is to provide transparency into our investment process. We have tools to provide insight into our portfolio orientation, the sources of risk return, factors, exposures, as well as how the portfolios change over time. And the aim is to share as much of that insight as possible with our clients to ensure our process results in solutions that meet their needs. Performance and attribution is a significant part of every single client meeting we have. It's commonly the main focus of that meeting. And similar to Stephen's team, our team frequently answers questions from clients, but we've also moved from a reactive approach to more of a proactive one in anticipating the client's questions. Now, this better prepares the relationship managers and portfolio managers and adds effectiveness to each client meeting. As Stephen mentioned previously, this is an exercise in knowing your client and knowing them very well and what their distinct needs are. A good example of this at Acadian is some of our clients' sensitivity around dispersion within their portfolios that are part of the same strategy. So our team will commonly create an analysis to determine why the portfolios may have performed differently in a short time period to provide ultimate detail and transparency to our relationship managers, portfolio managers, and ultimately to the client themselves so they understand exactly what's going on with their portfolio.
Okay, thanks, Daryl. Right, so now I'm going to ask our panelists to look into the future. Performance analysts tend to be looking back at the performance that has been delivered. So I'm going to put our chaps on the spot now, ask them to look into the future. And do we think that performance teams are on a journey, or have they already arrived at the destination? And if we're still on a journey, where are we going? And what I mean by that is, have performance analysts developed, has the role of the performance analyst developed as far as it can, or is there room for further development of that role? And basically, what role do we see performance teams playing in the future? Daryl, let's start with you this time.
Sure, yeah, I think the role is constantly expanding and very quickly at that. At Acadian, as a quantitative equity manager, we deal with a large amounts of data. Our proprietary database covers over 35,000 securities in over 100 countries. At the same time, the firm's processing more data, the clients are demanding more of it, and at a greater frequency than before. Peter, as you noted in the introduction, investment strategies are evolving. They're growing in complexity, which brings many unique opportunities for performance teams and many challenges. So it's more as required of performance teams. And clients are demanding more transparency, more timely reporting, greater frequency, and their questions are extremely sophisticated. So working closely with our clients, we seek to anticipate the changing landscape of the industry and support new types of solutions for them. So custom solutions is becoming more of a focus. And with any type of custom solution, the performance and attribution team needs the flexibility as well as the expertise to accurately calculate the performance and provide meaningful attribution. As teams build out their data validation functions, it helps us to provide more of a self-serving environment for our stakeholders to retrieve their standardized reports, which frees us up for more of the higher level and deeper analytical work, where I think the teams are and should be spending the most of their time. So certainly a bright future, in my opinion.
Okay, thanks, Daryl. Stephen, how do you see the role of performance teams developing in the future?
Okay, well, I mean, I've mentioned earlier about, you've got to have a firm basis of, automation and workflow and, data controls, that allows the teams to move away from the, the number crunching side of things or data checking. They can focus more on the valid added side of things. So I think once you've got that in place, you can look at, different delivery mechanisms, for example. We need reliable, accurate, well-presented and speedy online self-service tools, dynamic online reporting abilities, and secure mobile technology, so iPads, for example. So there's a number of areas within the industry where, the applications that can add value in those areas. I think another area as well is team structure as well. So I think that teams need to be structured in such a way that production is optimized and you can maximize the resource and the capabilities of the team. I think there does need to be differentiation between the remaining sort of production or maintenance functions and the capacity within the team to focus on seeking out delivering value added, and and also evolving skill sets within the teams as well. So the analysts need to be much more business aware, able to liaise with internal and external recipients, and understand what the requirements are and to seek out those value added opportunities.
Okay, thanks very much. Now, let's get on some views from our audience on this. So, having listened to what Daryl and Stephen have had to say, let's get your views first about how the situation will change over the next 3 years for investment processes. Do you think performance teams will play a much greater role? Do you see it not changing much? Do you think the role of the performance team is going to reduce over this time? So again, we'll give you 20 seconds or so to select your option, and then we'll feed back to you how you voted. Okay, how are we doing now? Have we got the votes ready? So, 61% of you are expecting performance teams to play a much greater role in the future in investment processes. And only a very small proportion of you, 4%, think that the role of performance teams will reduce. So, what about client management? Do you think the same is true of the role of performance teams in client management processes? And this is our final poll. So how do you think the situation will change here over the next 3 years? Do you think performance teams will play a much greater role in client management? Do you see no change? Or do you think the role of performance teams will reduce? Okay, how are we doing now? Have we got the voting? And it's similar. 69% see the role of the performance teams increasing over time, and the rest of you don't see much change at all. Okay, all right. Well, that was interesting. It was an interesting discussion. It was some interesting voting, and some of you have got some interesting questions. So. Let's go and let's answer some of these questions. Let's ask the panel to answer some of these questions.
Thank you, Peter. We're now going to begin answering the questions submitted during today's presentation. As a reminder, you can still submit questions through the questions pane in your attendee control panel. Peter, our first question is, It's good to hear that you both feel that your performance teams are making a positive contribution to the investment process. Do you think this is true in all firms, or is there something special about your firm?
Okay, which of you, Daryl, Stephen, which of you want to go first with that? Do you think there's something special about your firm, or do you find that actually what you said, how you find it, is true in all investment management firms? Daryl, let's start with you first.
Sure. Well, I think our firm is special in many ways. I think the crux of this one is it's largely dependent on the size and the scope of the performance team within organizations. I know that the role where the performance team sits is very different organization to organization. One of the aspects about Acadian that I think is somewhat unique is the flat org structure and frequent interaction we have between our performance team and the investment management team. We've done some hiring over the past few years, and with that comes a lot of phone screens and a lot of interviews. And it's quite common to hear candidates say that they are interested in Acadian to be closer to the investment process and work on more analytical projects. That being said, our team members also attend many industry conferences throughout the year, and the feedback and interaction from those conferences is the same message, that it's clear that this is becoming a very global and gradual change across the industry, and again, in my opinion, a move in the right direction.
Okay, thanks. Stephen, how about you? What do you think in response to that question?
Yeah, I agree with Daryl actually. I mean, the size and the structure of the team is key to that actually. I mean, Barings is a firm of the size where it does facilitate a lot of interaction between the performance team and the investors and also the client service team. So I think that regular face-to-face interaction with those areas is key. It's all about communication. So you know, I think there's always room to improve, but you know, I think, you know, also looking at the polls, I mean, I think that the polls also agree that, you know, most firms seem to agree that, you know, that's generally an industry consensus.
Okay, thanks very much. What's our second question then?
Thank you. Do you think the task of providing performance information to clients is getting harder or easier? Clients seem to want more information, but do you really think they need it and understand it?
Stephen, do you want to take that one first?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, there's definitely we're definitely noticing an upward trend in the demand for data, and you know, I mentioned MiFID II and Solvency II earlier. You know, they've crossed over into performance, so undoubtedly, you know, that those kind of demands are definitely in the future. You know, the type of data that's available as well. You know, some of the attribution information that's available and the level of analysis that we can now produce. You know, it's very detailed, can be very complex. I think, you know, you do have to understand your recipient as well, and you know, and understand the level of complexity in relation to the type of data that you're given. So I don't think there's any question about whether the recipients sort of understand what they're asking for. I think, you know, that definitely is the case. But I still think, you know, you need to be quite careful about, you know, the level of complexity that you automatically offer. You know, transparency is important, of course, as well. So, you know, the systems can offer various ways of extracting information. So, you know, we're now in a position where we don't, you know, if we give attribution data, you know, we can go down to very level of granularity and explain every investment decision.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. Daryl?
Yeah, I think the basic information, so returns, exposures, maybe some metrics, it is becoming easier. However, the questions that we're receiving are more in depth. So the data and information provide transparency, so I can certainly see why clients need it and request it. And in many cases, our clients will not only state their ask, but also provide some background on why they're requesting it. So this is very beneficial in the sense that we can not only provide the data and answer their question, but also provide additional analysis to really even answer that second or third level question and provide our insight in that way. So it comes down to transparency, and as much data we can provide in a very efficient and informative way is very beneficial for our clients.
Okay, thanks, Daryl. Okay, well we've got quite a few questions coming in. We've got a little bit more time, so let's take another question.
We hear a lot about the drive to automate more of the processing in performance teams. Isn't this going to descale the role of performance analysts in the future?
Stephen, let's start with you on that one.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I think that, you know, with more and more automation, there is a danger that sort of certainly junior analysts will sort of lose touch with the underlying methodologies and principles behind performance attribution, as we automate more and more. But you know, there's also a wealth of training and performance-related qualifications out there, which you know, everyone can take advantage of. And you know, Barings, you know, we've got, you know, we encourage people to take the CFA examination, the CIPM, and the IMC examination. So, you know, education of our team members is very important to us at Barings. So I think that bridges the gap between, you know, sort of the old days where we used to do things manually in spreadsheets, and you know, nowadays you perhaps don't understand that underlying, or you know, you lose touch with that underlying methodology. But there's plenty of opportunity for performance analysts these days to be able to ensure that they are familiar with those techniques.
Okay, Daryl, how about you?
Yeah, I think almost to the opposite of de-skilling, I think it almost enriches the process. And what I guess as an example of this, during a somewhat recent system conversion to BISAM, right, we had to go through an extensive reconciliation process, analyze multiple transaction codes, and really dig into the underlying calculation and many metrics. And I think this actually has deepened our underlying performance and attribution knowledge. And a lot of the automation that we're doing is at the reporting layer and in some of the more basic statistics. So this, by automating that, we're essentially allowing the opportunity to move to higher value add activities, which certainly promotes development and growth and allows the firm to move the work down to another level, essentially saving the firm money. So I think this opens up the opportunity to do more analytical and deeper value add work.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that as well.
Okay, great, thanks. Next question.
When you dive down into a portfolio's performance, to what extent is that custom one-off effort versus utilizing existing tools for the analysis?
Daryl, how about you? Do you want to take that question first?
Sure. I missed the last piece of it. Can you repeat that? When we're analyzing portfolios?
Into a portfolio's performance, to what extent is that a custom one-off effort versus utilizing existing tools for the analysis?
Sure. So I think it's definitely a combination. Depending on the level of complexity of the question and what we have built out so far, usually we have almost a waterfall of we know kind of the basic information that we're going to obtain, and then from there it could be I think we like to think of it at the end almost as a jigsaw puzzle, that once you see the final product, it looks fairly easy and it kind of makes sense, and it seems that this was a simple thing to put together at the outset, but when you're going through the process, you're going down a lot of different avenues to try to obtain that data and to come to a coherent conclusion, because a lot of these things aren't very straightforward. So there's certainly a lot of time being spent on analyzing these things and coming up with a very sound conclusion.
Okay, well, as we're running out of time, we've still got questions. Let's take one more question, and Stephen, rather than get you to respond on the last one, we'll ask you to pick up the next one.
Can you share how the performance analysts have managed to improve the performance of the funds?
How a performance analyst has managed to improve on the performance of the fund? Well, I think it's important to look at not just the standard type of analysis within like the Brinton style analysis, which is Peter reflected earlier. It's looking backwards. I mean, that kind of analysis tells you where you've gone right or wrong from an overall asset allocation or selection point of view. But I mean, I spoke earlier about the product reviews that we do. I think that they're really important because we're looking at portfolio performance from different angles, trying to find a new view on things. And when you standard type of analysis, you're kind of looking at transaction patterns or the risk patterns within the portfolio or the investment manager, and sort of trying to identify perhaps where we could do things better. So I think that constant kind of looking at what we do, why we do it, that's really important. So performance teams can add a lot of value in that area because of the skills that we have and the analysis at our disposal.
Okay, well, I'm afraid our time is up, and there are some questions that we weren't able to pose to our panel, and I apologise for that, but we do need to bring the webinar to an end. So I'd like to thank our panelists for the interesting discussion, and thank all of you for attending today's virtual roundtable. And once you leave today's webinar, you'll receive a survey on the presentation, and we'd appreciate it if you would complete that and provide your feedback. And you'll also receive a follow-up email within 24 to 48 hours with a link to view a recording of today's webinar. So, on behalf of BISAM and our panelists, thank you for joining us today, and please enjoy the rest of your day.